It was a scorching afternoon in June 1931 in the quiet countryside of Illinois. A small biplane suddenly lost power, spiraled out of control, and slammed hard into the dirt of an open field. When a local farmer rushed to the wreckage, the scene was horrific. Twisted metal, smoke, and among the debris, the limp, broken body of a 19-year-old girl. He checked for a pulse, but found nothing. Her skin was ice cold, her eyes completely lifeless. Convinced she was dead, the man didn't call an ambulance. Instead, he lifted her shattered body, placed her in the trunk of his car, and drove straight to the local funeral home.
Her body was wheeled into the morgue, and the Undertaker prepared his tools to begin the embalming process. But as he leaned over her face, he stopped dead in his tracks. A faint, almost invisible breath fluttered from her lips. She wasn't a corpse. She was barely holding on to life. And just 3 years before this nightmare, she was celebrated as the fastest girl on the planet.
Her name was Betty Robinson, and her rise to fame was something straight out of a Hollywood script. Back in early 1928, Betty was just an ordinary 16-year-old high school student. She wasn't an athlete, she had never trained in track and field, and she didn't even know she was fast. But one afternoon, running late for her homebound commuter train, she sprinted down the platform with everything she had, catching it just in time. Watching from a window was her biology teacher, who also coached the school's track team. Astounded by her raw speed, he asked her to run a timed trial the very next day.
What followed was pure history. In only her 4th official race ever, 16-year-old Betty Robinson found herself standing on the track at the 1928 Amsterdam Olympics, the very first games that allowed women to compete in track events. When the gun fired, Betty didn't just run, she flew. She crossed the finish line in 12.2 seconds, snatching the gold medal in the 100-meter dash and setting a new world record. Overnight, she became America's darling, the sweet golden girl of Chicago. She had youth, fame, and an endless horizon of glory ahead of her. Until that tragic summer day in 1931 changed everything.
After her miraculous survival at the morgue, Betty was rushed to the emergency room. The medical report was catastrophic. Her pelvis was crushed, her arm was broken, and her left leg was shattered in multiple places. For 7 agonizing weeks, Betty lay trapped in a deep coma, hovering in the shadow of death.
When she finally opened her eyes, the world she woke up to was unrecognizable. To stabilize her destroyed leg, doctors had to insert a heavy silver pin directly into her bone. She was encased in plaster, locked in a hospital bed for 11 months, and confined to a wheelchair for another year. Then came the verdict from her doctors, words that shattered her heart worse than the crash shattered her body. They told her, "You will never run again, Betty. You'll be lucky if you can ever walk without a crutch." The crash hadn't just broken her bones, it left her left leg permanently half an inch shorter than her right. The golden girl of American athletics was now a teenager who couldn't even stand up on her own.
For most people, surviving a fatal crash would be enough. Walking again would be a victory. But Betty wasn't most people. Deep inside her broken body lived the heart of a champion. She refused to accept a life lived in pity, and every single day became a war against her own physical limits. The physical therapy was pure agony. Every step felt like broken glass tearing through her muscles.
She fell hundreds of times and cried in the dark when no one was watching. But every time her body gave up, her spirit forced her back onto her feet. Year after year, through sheer stubborn willpower, she taught her body how to walk, then how to jog, and eventually how to run. But there was a permanent scar that no amount of willpower could erase. Because of the silver pin in her hip and leg, Betty could no longer bend her knee completely. This meant one devastating thing for a sprinter. She could never assume the crouched starting position again. In sprinting, if you can't crouch at the starting blocks, you can't race individual events. Her dream of defending her 100-meter Olympic crown was officially dead. If she couldn't start from a crouch, she would find another way. Fast forward to 1936, the Berlin Olympics. 5 years after being declared dead in a mortuary, Betty Robinson stepped back onto the Olympic stage. Since she couldn't start a race from a standstill, the U.S. coaches placed her in the 4x100-meter relay team, specifically the third leg, where she could receive the baton while already standing upright and moving. The tension in the stadium was suffocating. Over 100,000 spectators roared as the German relay team, the absolute heavy favorites, dominated the early part of the race. But on the third leg, the baton was handed to Betty. As her fingers wrapped around that aluminum baton, Betty wasn't just running for a medal. She was running with 5 years of torment. She was running for the girl left in the trunk of a car. She was running for every doctor who told her never again. With one leg shorter than the other and a hip filled with pain, Betty surged down the curve with terrifying speed. She closed the gap and executed a flawless exchange, passing the baton to her teammate, Helen Stevens. Helen bolted down the home stretch and crossed the line first. Gold for Team USA and a new world record. Betty Robinson had done the impossible. 5 years after waking up in a morgue, she was once again an Olympic champion. Betty Robinson lived a long, quiet life after Berlin, passing away in 1999 at the age of 88. But her legacy remains one of the greatest triumphs of the human spirit ever recorded. They thought she was dead. They told her she was broken. They wrote her off as history. But Betty showed the world that destiny isn't decided by the tragedy that hits you. It's decided by how hard you fight back when you're on the ground. Because real champions don't just win when everything is perfect. They win when everything is broken.